I'm Melissa Shanahan, and this is the Velocity Work Podcast, episode number 99. This podcast is for attorneys who are running their own firms. We explore tactics, tools, and stories related to pushing past simply lawyering well and into building a successful firm. Working in your firm and working on your business are two very different things. This podcast focuses on the latter. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode. We are going to talk today about a distinction that has existed in my mind for a very long time, and I've never talked about it until recently with a private client. This came up. And as we talked through it, which I'll share it with you in just a moment, he said, you should do a podcast on this. And I was like, oh, I totally should. I never thought to do that, but let's do it. So anyway, this is because of the suggestion by him, which was fantastic. So here's what the discussion was about. You all know that I teach Monday Map and Friday Wrap. It's the weekly process that if you follow it, it has you planning your week really well. And it's not about perfection, it's about progress, and it's about showing up for the practice of doing that process. That's it. And you get better and better over time. But the beauty of it is when you get very intentional about planning your time and how you're going to spend your time, and then you honor your plan, you blow your own mind with what gets done. It's pretty remarkable. So anyway, that's a whole process. If you want access to it and you don't know about it or you haven't practiced it yet, go to velocitywork.com and you can download the free guide that I have that walks you through it. But here's the thing. I have clients who are transactional lawyers of some sort, and then I have clients who are involved pretty heavily with litigation in the courts. And what's fascinating is there is this divide among those two camps where transactional attorneys tend to adopt this more quickly than litigation attorneys. And it's because litigation attorneys tend to, not always, have this view that their schedule isn't theirs and that they don't have control. So it's pointless to plan because they don't have control over their schedule. Generally speaking, that is something I feel from one camp versus the other. And I don't buy into that. I never have. I hear them. Litigation attorneys have a different set of circumstances than transactional lawyers, but to me, there's still a set of facts to deal with, and then you can work with those facts. That isn't how everyone approaches it, and with coaching, I can help people with that. But this client I was talking to is probably one of the best students in terms of practicing Monday Map as a process every week, and he's in court more than most of the clients that I have. He's in court a lot. And so I find it fascinating that he doesn't use it as an excuse that his time isn't his own, right? Like, which I'm putting air quotes around that. He really adopted this practice and it's changed everything for him. And he still has a lot of time spent in court every week. I wanted to do this podcast because there's probably many of you out there that can identify with many of the litigation attorneys that I do encounter. They tend to feel like it's harder and or more impossible to apply this process to manage their time or plan their time really well. And if you find yourself in that camp, I want to offer that it isn't any different than any other kind of attorney or any other practice area than yours when it comes to planning your time. Because the truth is, planning your time is figuring out what you've got to work with in terms of hours, what you have to get done, and scheduling accordingly. And scheduling your time with what you have to work with, I mean, it is what it is, right? It's just the facts. It's almost like many of them are operating more chaotically because of the nature of having to be in court a lot more and dealing with those kinds of matters and those kinds of cases, that it just feels like a lost cause. They're just going to be running hot. They're going to be spinning constantly because that's the nature of their work. But my client, who's in court a lot, doesn't buy into that. And he actually practices Monday Map to a T. And he can plan every week. Sometimes things don't go as planned, but he knows how to deal with that because he's been practicing this for a while. And it's all great, right? Like it's changed his whole game. It's changed his whole life because now he knows exactly what he should expect to get done and what won't get done, what needs to get pushed, expectations that need to get reset because he's all making these decisions ahead of time. Now, this client, we did some math, and this is what I want to encourage every one of you to do. Now, even if you're a transactional lawyer, still same thing. This is the same process, but I just want to really break it down for you litigators. Every week, he has an average per week that he should count on having to be out of the office for hearings or matters in court. And what it works out to be, I think was either 21 or 25 hours a week. I'm not sure. On average, it's not his time to be able to do other things. That's his time for that specifically, that kind of task. So that's taken off the table. So if he wants to work 50 hours a week, he automatically has to subtract that off. And right now, 50 hours, by the way, do not judge that. For some of you, that's not very much. And for some of you, it's too much. Doesn't matter. For where he is on his point in his journey at that time, this is what we're talking about. So 50 hours minus the 25, let's say. So now he's got 25 hours left in the week that he's not going to be in court. So now what? What are you going to do with that 25 hours? Then there's some recurring things that he always has to deal with, being his clients, dealing with certain things within the firm that he's committed to. Like there's some recurring things that are non-negotiable that have to get done. So then you count up on average how many hours a week that you do those things. And then you subtract that off the top as well. You keep subtracting off the top with the things that it's not an option. Like it has to happen. It doesn't mean it has to happen forever by you, but get realistic about your current reality. And so then what he's left over with, I think, was 17 hours. He has 17 hours that he can decide how he's going to spend that time. And he has a lot of things to do. He has rocks to make headway on, which are on the business priorities that we come up with during the strategic planning retreat. So he has rocks that he needs to make headway on. He has some management duties that he needs to take care of, mentoring. There's things that he has to do. There's a coaching call with me some weeks. Like there are things that he has to do well beyond what I'm saying. I don't have his to-do list in front of me, right? But he's got 17 hours in the week. And he has a lot to fit into that 17 hours. And so then his job is to be very realistic about what's on his brain download for the week. How is he going to fit things into the week, into the 17 hours that he has? And what's left over, if there are things left over, and there always are for him, how is he going to handle that? Is he going to wait and he'll tend to it next week when he sits down to do Monday Map then? Is he going to reset some expectations so that he has more room in his schedule this week and he can make headway on something specific? Or is he going to delegate harder this week and get some things off of his plate so he opens up and frees some time for himself? So there's options. You always have options. But the crazy thing is you can't look at your options and you can't evaluate your options unless you deal with the facts first. And the fastest way to deal with facts is get to math. Make it math. It's not going to be perfect math when you're considering averages, but it gives you a really good idea of about the kind of bandwidth you should be able to expect on any given week. Now, when you sit down to do your Monday Map, you know, for the most part, what's coming up that week in terms of appearances or anything you have to do where your time is not your own, right? So you have a rough idea, a pretty good idea of, what's scheduled that week, what you need to show up for. The one thing that I would say is that if you're uncertain about how long something is going to take, overestimate. So this client that I'm talking about, there are times where something should take 40 minutes, but it ends up taking 2 hours because of, people didn't have their ducks in a row when he went to court. So, okay, that's a thing. So I always tell him, that's an anomaly. There was an anomaly that happened recently with that where he was there for 3 hours and it should have taken 40 minutes. That sucked because he did have his day planned to get to other things and that threw a wrench in it. So at that point, he had to take a step back, rearrange what he was supposed to do on his calendar, reset expectations with those if that needed to be done, and then go back to sinking into the work. Like put your head down and go, right? So that was a pain in the butt, and it's going to be a reality sometimes no matter what. But we did talk about however long you think it's going to take, you need to add some cushion to it. And if you get out early or on time, just be delighted with that. But don't bank on time that really, if you're being honest, there's like a 50% chance that you're going to run over by X amount of time. Just go ahead and allot that amount of time for that appearance or for that matter. That way, you are not screwing yourself when things are out of your control and someone else is taking longer or the thing is taking longer, then it just doesn't hurt as bad, right? So I think being generous with your estimates is really important when things are outside of your control. And if you get the time back, you can just be delighted by that. And you can decide, you can know ahead of time how you want to operate when you get more time back than you expected. Generally speaking, if you get done early, which means you have some space that you didn't have something planned, how do you want to use that time? Do you want to just go ahead and make headway on the day? So you shift everything up to start now instead of waiting another hour or so? Or it depends on you and your work style and the capacity that you have, right? So what do you want to do with that space? Do you want to get a coffee and just breathe and relax and take a really good break so you're totally energized when you plug back into work? You get to decide all of this. And there is no way that I can tell you what is best on how to handle the time that you delightfully get back. You have to decide that ahead of time. And if you wait for the moment, you'll bungle the opportunity to do something meaningful. Whether that means to really relax and just take a real break before you dive into what you do have scheduled, or whether that means, no, like I'm going to bump everything up, make headway, and make this day a win. Maybe take off early because I got the opportunity to do that. Or maybe make headway on something I wasn't planning on making headway on today after I get everything done that I said I was going to get done, right? So there's different ways to look at it. You just have to decide ahead of time. And I wanted to do this podcast because it's so easy for litigation attorneys to say, well, Monday Map doesn't work for me because I don't have control over a lot of my schedule. Okay, well, then reduce that, take it off the top and figure out what you have left. Because let's be honest, you do have control over a lot of your time. You could have, that's a better way to say it. You could have control over a lot of your time. Not all of your time, but a lot of your time. It's just math. The longer that you stay in confusion about all of it, and the longer that you stay a victim to you being at the whim of the world with court dates and appearances and et cetera, you're creating more problems for yourself, and you're delaying the chance to actually be able to shift into a different way of being. You're delaying the chance to feel more productive than you currently feel. And you can stay there, but it's not a great place to be when you feel like you are at the whim of the world. So listen, there's a certain number of hours every week, and you will know for the most part what those hours are when you sit down at the beginning of the week for that week. There's a certain number of hours that aren't yours. You give them to the things that you're called to do. There's a certain number of hours that are yours. What are you going to do to make the most of those? That's what you want to think about with Monday Map. And the more you can do that and be dialed in for that, the more you will blow your own mind with what you get done, even when you have all these hours that you're supposed to show up for someone else, for something specific. So I just want to encourage everyone here, like in my mind, it's been a distinction since the get-go. When I'm working with attorneys, it's like, okay, I just look at it as what set of circumstances they have. What are the facts? And then work with the facts to figure out where you can take control. I do that whether it's someone who is an estate planning attorney or a trademark attorney, or whether it's an immigration attorney or a criminal law attorney or criminal defense. It doesn't matter. Whoever brings something to me, I just deal with the facts. And it's helpful for them. But if you're listening to this podcast and you've dismissed Monday Map, or you've dismissed really managing your time well and being very intentional with your time because of all of the appearances you have to make and where you have to be and all of that, well, okay, just subtract it off the top. What are you left with? And how are you going to make the most of that time that's left over? So I hope this is helpful for you to think about. If anyone listening to this has ever thought, well, that's not going to work for me when it comes to planning your time really well, using Monday Map as a process to do so that you show up intentionally, then I really want to encourage you to take this opportunity to question your own belief about that. That's not true. I'm telling you it's not true because I've worked with so many different kinds of attorneys using this process. It doesn't matter what your set of circumstances is. You can still use the process to create a feeling of progress and of organization and autonomy instead of feeling full of chaos and like a victim to the practice area that you chose and to client matters and needs. No, that's a choice. That's a choice. So get your hands on the resource, get your hands on the guide. Of course, if you join Mastery Group, this is the kind of thing that we focus on. Everyone in Mastery Group is expected to practice this process called Monday Map, Friday Wrap. It's not about perfection. It's just about showing up and being really intentional with planning your time and making sure you're planning your time in a way that really lines you up with where you want to go, where you want to be. That's what I've got for you this week. And I just want to give a shout out to the attorney who suggested that I do this episode. He is running circles because of his commitment to the process. He is running circles, even though he's in court, on average 25 hours in a week. Maybe it was 21. Doesn't matter. It's a lot. That's how often on average he's in court, and he's running circles around transactional attorneys that are kind of half-assing the process for Monday Map and not making as much headway or not nearly as quickly as they could and experiencing frustration because they're not making as much headway as they could. Like all of that. We're talking about someone who doesn't deal with court, and he does, and he's making progress at light speed towards where he wants to go. Could he make more progress and more quickly? And would he prefer to not have to be in court and to be able to give those hours back to working on the firm and et cetera, et cetera? Sure. But also, it's not a thought. It's not his reality. And it's pointless to wish that things were different than they are. They are the way they are. He's always looking for opportunities to continue to optimize and make sure he's getting as much off of his plate as he can. But it is what it is. And his acceptance of that fully allows him to stay really objective about his week and about his time and about how he spends his time and about how he's going to plan to spend his time. It's just so funny to me to see, and it doesn't mean anything bad about the transactional lawyers who kind of half-ass it. It's just this client that I'm talking about is just at a place where he is really ready to dial it in, and he has been doing so. And he's experiencing the benefits of doing so. And it's not easy, ever for him. It's not easy, but it's so worth it because of what he's able to accomplish. So I just want to offer to all of you that I hope that he serves as a bright spot for you as an example of what's possible with half the amount of time as their own as maybe another kind of attorney with a different practice area. And he's committed to being very intentional with his time. My hope is that providing him as an example is a bright spot for you and serves as inspiration to just deal with the facts and stop playing and choosing to be at the whim of the world and just get to the math. Figure it out, work backwards, reverse engineer, figure out on average how many hours a week do you have that are yours that you can schedule your brain download into. And then go from there. And you can use the guide to get really specific and granular with how you're going to move through that so that you can practice it. But yeah, this should be inspiration for all of us, not just the attorneys who are doing a lot of litigation, but also any attorney, any law firm owner out there who is dealing with trying to manage their time well. I'm telling you, just get out of your own way. Follow this guy's lead that I've just given you the example of and watch what happens. All right, everyone. Have a beautiful week. Talk to you next week. Hey there. If you enjoyed this podcast, I highly recommend you come and check out Mastery Group. It is where owner attorneys come together to study this material, apply it, and thus create really big results for their firm and for their life. So come on over, velocitywork.com/join to get more information and get started. Show notes from this episode can be found at velocitywork.com/podcast.